Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Strawberry Splash, and I'm sipping on some ginger tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, fire red, Mars black, ultramarine blue, green oxide, and chrome yellow. And of course, you can switch up those colors if you'd like to, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that I'll be using for some drawing. And then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 11 round synthetic brush. And I have a number 1 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course, you can switch those up if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same type of paint and brushes and chalk and all that good stuff is in there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. All right, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting the background of our canvas. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush, and I'm going to be using black paint. So I'm going to be going for just a flat black background on my painting, because I know that I want my the information of the fluid and all the other stuff to really pop out. So the black background is going to provide me with a great base for that. And what I'm doing is I can paint this in any direction that I want to, because black paint really covers well. So I just kind of use a good amount of paint. I kind of go around the edges and just make sure that I've got it all the way to the edge of my canvas. You can paint this in a vertical or a horizontal direction, whatever is easiest for you, because black will cover nice and easy. You won't detect the brush strokes unless you have an exorbitant amount of paint. Then you might see the thick spots or the thin spots in kind of a 3D type of way. You might be able to detect the direction of the brush strokes that way. But as far as the coverage goes, the black paint will cover pretty darn well. And then I choose to paint my canvases, the ones that I want to have a black background. I choose to paint them. You can purchase canvases that are pre-primed with a black color to them. The only downfall with that is the primer that is used on the canvas from the manufacturer is not designed to be the final layer. It's just designed to be an adhesion type of substance, so the paint will adhere to the canvas well. So if you are using a pre-primed black canvas, what you'll want to do is just make sure that you put a nice protective coat over the painting after it's done, to make sure that if you didn't paint over the primed area, that it is protected from the natural elements, so it'll be nice and so it'll age well for you. And then what I do is I just like to take my brush and go back and forth, make sure I paint out any really thick spots, and this will help if I missed any spots. It'll kind of ensure that I get the whole thing done. And then we're going to be utilizing our piece of chalk for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this large brush away, take out your piece of chalk, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be drawing an outline of our strawberry with our piece of chalk. So I do recommend that you make sure that your canvas is dry before you start this step. So this is that time where you get to take the extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dry and get it dry that way. So I'm going to be giving you some little dots. We'll connect our dots. We're just going for a nice basic shape of the strawberry and of the leaves on the top of the strawberry. No fine-tuned detail. We'll get to all that when we start our painting. I'm going to be outlining a strawberry, but you could certainly do cherries or grapes or orange or whatever other thing that you want to be falling in the water or splashing in the water. So I want my strawberry to kind of look like it's being dropped into the water and it's kind of falling and maybe turning a little bit. So I'm going to have mine kind of at a little bit of a tilt. So if you find the center of your canvas left to right and top to bottom, my center is right about here. I'm going to go maybe about an inch below that and make myself a little bit of a marker. And then I'm going to follow that down until I'd say I'm about maybe 3 or 4 inches from the bottom of my canvas, make myself another little mark. That's just going to give me the top and the bottom of the strawberry itself. And then what I can do is I can kind of give myself a barrier to the left. So I'll go about halfway between these two, and I'm going to come over maybe about 2.5, 3 inches, give myself a little bit of a marker. And then over on the right hand side, I want the tip of the bottom of my strawberry to be out pretty darn far. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come over from this marker, and I'm going to go about halfway between here and here. So that would bring me to right about here. And then I'm going to come up maybe about an inch, inch and a half. So I am somewhere between the height of these two markers over on the right hand side. So that's going to give you the farthest out point. Now we'll just connect these with some wavy lines. So this one is going to connect to here. This is going to be the bottom part of my strawberry. So I'm going to just give it this little bit of a ripple in through here and then just kind of connect this in through here. I'm going to connect here to here with a big swooping curved line like this. I will connect this one to here with this is going to be the top part of my strawberry. So something like this maybe will give me the top part of the strawberry, and then I'll connect here to here with the side of my strawberry. So something will bring this maybe in like this and then back up like this. And again, you could certainly modify yours and make it look a little bit different shaped, whatever you'd like to do. And then I'm going to just put some leaves on the top of the strawberry. So this can be very carefree. I want them to maybe one to go over the edge of the front edge of my strawberry a little bit. So maybe I'll bring that one in front like that and bring this up and just kind of give myself a little bit of a leaf in through there. Maybe I'll have one kind of coming behind and up like this, and then bringing this down like this. These are not super important because they're going to be hidden behind the water, the liquid. So they're going to be really distorted and kind of skewed. So you're just looking for some points and, you know, something that will resemble some leaf shapes. And that's all I'm going to be doing for my outline. We'll be using our medium brush for the next step. So you can put your chalk away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our leaves and we're going to paint the base coat of our strawberry. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. I'm going to end up using green, yellow, white, and black for my leaves and red for my strawberry. But I'm going to start with a base coat of just green for my leaves. So I picked up just green paint. You can paint it all the way to the edge of your chalk mark, or if you end up leaving a little bit of chalk mark, that's okay too. We're just at the moment painting the base coat of the leaves, and we'll finish them up in a minute, but we're just going to get this base coat on, and then we'll wash and dry the brush, and we're going to paint the base coat of our strawberry. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to pick up a red paint, and I'm going to paint the base coat of my strawberry. So I don't need to do any special brush stroke or anything like that on my strawberry. What I do know is that the red paint that I use, because the paint that I use is a student grade paint, which means that it is pretty thin in consistency and it has a lot of translucency to it. So I can kind of utilize that to my advantage. Where I want my strawberry to be on the darker side, which is going to be the bottom part of it, I can use less paint on my brush and it'll end up looking a little bit darker when it dries because the black paint sits underneath it and you'll be able to see that black paint through the red paint. And where I want the strawberry to be a little bit brighter, I can utilize more paint on my brush. And again, this is just the base coat, so I'm not terribly concerned about it being perfect. You can use this little dotting that I'm using, you can use a rubbing if you want to, but you'll notice as it dries, if you want an area to be brighter, like right here, I just put a little bit more red on my brush, and that means it's going to be more concentrated in that area. So as it dries, that area will look a little bit brighter than the areas where I have less red paint. And if you don't get the great gradation that I'm getting, don't worry about it at this point because we are going to be, like I said, doing another step to it. So this is just kind of getting the strawberry party started. And then I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to go finish up those little leaves. So I wash and dry my brush. The thing that I want to do with the leaves is I just want to add some minimal detail to them so they look a little bit three-dimensional, but again, they're going to be hidden in a lot of that the liquid that's coming down. So I'm going to just touch the tip of my brush in a little bit of black paint to give myself a couple of little veins and stuff within those leaves. So I just kind of pull these little bits of darkness down the center of some of these leaves. Maybe we've got a little bit in between these guys over in here. And I'm not doing much, just kind of giving myself a little bit of information within those leaves. I'm going to wash and dry my brush now, and I'm going to put a couple of little highlights on my leaves. So my highlights are going to come from white, yellow, and green, but I'm going to start with just yellow and white on my brush. And really what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of tip in a couple of little bright spots at the top side of some of a portion of the leaf like this. Maybe we'll put a little bit on this one in through here, and you don't have to do much. This is again going to be kind of hidden within the moisture of the liquid, so just adding these little bits of bright areas. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of green on my brush now just to make sure that I've got everything colored in. I've got all of my chalk marks kind of hidden, and then once I've got that done, I am going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be adding the highlights and shadows on the main part of the strawberry. So this in essence is going to give the form of this object. It'll tell the viewer that it's bumped out a little bit here. It'll also tell the viewer that it's shadowed a little bit at the bottom. We'll put the little seeds on in the next step, but right now we're just looking for the main shape of the strawberry. So I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors I'm using are red, white, and black. And if I want to, or if I need to, I might use a little bit of yellow too, but in my head right now, I'm just using red, white, and black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my shadow on first, which is going to be this bottom portion of the strawberry, maybe a little bit over here just to make sure that I have that contour where it dips in, and then I'll be putting a bright highlight up here on this edge and maybe a tiny little bit of a highlight from behind the strawberry as well. So I'm going to start with black and red on my brush at the same time. I like to utilize both colors on my brush so that way I can kind of have control as to the darkness of the red. You can go all the way black if you want to, but that might make it look a little bit unnatural. So I'm utilizing the black with a little bit of red, and I'm using kind of a rubbing type of painting technique just to give it almost that bumpy textural effect that strawberries tend to have. So reloading with a little bit of black and red so I can put a shadow underneath this leaf. So it looks like the leaf is kind of casting a bit of a shadow on the surface of the strawberry, and then just going to bring this down a little bit here. And if your paint is all the way black, just wipe it off on your paper towel and pick up some more red in the equation, and that'll help you to get the transition that you want. And then I'm gonna, without washing my brush, I still have a little bit of black, but I'm gonna pick up more red. I'll utilize the remnants of the black plus a touch of red on my brush just to make sure I've got this area in through here, and maybe a little bit down here just to make sure my chalk mark is all gone. Make sure that I go all the way to that little tippy top or tip of the edge. Have good coverage. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start picking up just red paint, making sure that I have a good coverage around the entire strawberry, making sure that it blends in with my darker area that's going down towards the bottom. And again, I'm just using the side of my brush in this circular type of brush stroke to make sure that I continue to have that textural effect that I'm going for. I'm going to put a little bit of that just red over in through here, again just making sure that it blends in, covering up my chalk marks. Going to go ahead and put that up here as well. And now that I've got a good coverage, I've got my shadows in place, what I'm going to start to do is add little bits of highlights. Oh, I might put a little shadow right underneath this leaf too. Now that I'm looking at it where that leaf is placed, I think I'm going to put a tiny bit of a shadow right in through here. So I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black paint just to give myself a little shadow underneath here, so it looks like we've got some good dimension underneath that one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, since I have some fresh black on my brush, I'm going to wash and dry my brush so I can get in some really bright highlights around that top edge. So I washed and dried my brush. I'm going to pick up white with a tiny bit of red on my brush. So I have a little bit of white and just a teeny tiny bit of red on my brush, and I'm going to go for a nice bright highlight up here on the top of my strawberry. I don't want to have a lot of paint on my brush, so I put it on there and then I just wiped my brush off so I can maintain the control of how far I want this highlight to go. And I'm really just kind of lightly tapping my canvas in order to get this light color to blend in with the red that it's next to. I'm going to pick up a little bit more red paint right now just to get these two areas to talk to one another, and that works out for me. While this is kind of drying a little bit, I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight down here on this corner in through here. So a little bit of white and red. So if this turns for you visually a little bit too pink for your liking, that's when you could add a little bit of yellow into the equation. That little bit of yellow will help to steer it away from pink and more into like a more of a richer tone for that red to look like it's a light red as opposed to just a pink type of color. But seems to be working out pretty well for me, so I'm gonna let it roll as it is. I'm putting a little bit more red in through here, just again making sure that I've got all these areas looking like they belong together. And then I'm gonna put a tiny bit of white paint up at the tippy top and over on the edge. So I just picked up white. I might have a little bit of red still on my brush, but that's okay. So a little bit of white on my brush. And again, the textural element of strawberries is they're very like pitted and they've got little pock marks all over the place. This is going to be behind some water. So I'm really just going to kind of tap in this little bits of white paint in through here on top of the light red. So once the water is on there, it'll have some nice shimmering effects behind the water. I'm going to give a little bit of this brightness over here on this little corner as well. Picking up a little bit more red paint just so I can get this to blend in a little bit in through here. That works. And then I'm going to put a tiny bit of a bright highlight over here on the edge. What this is going to do is this is going to make it look like there's a little bit of light coming from whatever that light source is over on the other side. This gives this is an easy way to give some really fast, simple dimension to a piece when you add that little bit of lightness coming, you know, from the other side. Just a teeny bit here and there will help do that. And then we're going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your highlights and your shadows on your strawberry, you can wash and dry this, or put away the medium brush, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our strawberry seeds. I'm going to use my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, red, and white. I don't think I'm going to use any other color in this, but if you'd like to, you certainly can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a dark red color. So I'm going to take my red and I'm going to add a little bit of black in it. I want this to be dark red, as we'll call that the little pocket that the seed sits in, and then we'll make little marks that are going to make the seed look three-dimensional. So I've got dark red, a little bit of red and a little bit of black, and this is going to be my pattern of sorts that I'm going to create for where my seeds are going to be. So really I'm just going to kind of make this diagonal type of line with my dots. If you're not able to see it, like I feel like I need my red to be a little bit darker, I'm adding a touch more black in it. I really want you to be able to see that hole in essence that I'm making, but I don't necessarily want it to be too invasive, so I just made it a little bit darker so we could definitely see it. They don't have to be in perfect rows. As I get down towards this darker side, I'm definitely going to use a little bit more black so we can see it a little bit more. And I'm just making these little marks that would be where those little seeds would go. And I'm not doing anything super tricky. I just want to give the illusion that there's these dark little shadowed type of holes that the seeds sit in. So they can be kind of systematic in the way that you put them. You can see I'm kind of putting mine in these, I need a little bit more black here, in these diagonal type of rows, but you can, if you feel that you want to put more or less than I'm putting, feel free to do so. And then once I've got them all kind of in place where I want them, now I in essence want to put the actual seed inside of it and also put a little bit of a highlight for the skin of the strawberry. So I'm going to do the seed first. So I just washed and dried my brush. Now I'm just picking up black paint. I'm going to put a little black dot in the middle of each one of these. So I just want it in a smaller kind of area than I had the original mark. So this is just giving me that little tiny bit of a seed in through there. And if you don't hit the mark perfectly, don't worry about it. Some of this is not even really going to be noticeable because it's a little bit in the darker area, but if you just remain consistent with the process that you go through, it'll end up looking nice and realistic. So I've got my little seed there. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put the highlight on the skin. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. This is going to be kind of a gradient of my light red, which I'll make with red and white, down to red. So I've got red and white. I'll use this as my highlight on my skin towards the top portion of my strawberry, and then I'll be using regular red towards the bottom. So I have that little pink or light red combination. I'm going to put a highlight on the skin on the bottom side of the seed. So I'm just going to be putting this little mark of sorts on the bottom side of where I put that red. So this is, again, just, we're creating an illusion here. As I go down towards the darker region, I'm going to start picking up red paint. So the red on top of this darker stuff will allow for it to look like it is popping out, like it's being illuminated by whatever that light source is. And I'm progressively getting darker as I go into these darker regions, because it wouldn't make sense for this skin to be as light as that skin because it's in the shadows. But it still has form to it, which is why I'm adding the red, so you can see that there is that little bit of part of the strawberry that pops out a little bit near that seed. And then all I need to do is put a little tiny highlight on my seeds in a minute. So this is the highlight on the skin. We'll put the highlight on the actual seed in a second. Let me just make sure I've got the rest of them done here, and you just kind of keep fiddling with it until you've got them as bright as you want them. Sometimes they go a little darker than you had anticipated as they dry, so you just kind of keep fiddling with that that lightness to them. And now I'm gonna pick up a touch of white to add this little bit of a highlight on the actual seed itself. So that black dot that we put in the middle, now I'm popping in a tiny little highlight, a little glow dot of sorts on that little tiny seed. And I don't need to do a lot of this. You don't even need to do it to all of them. This is just going to add that extra tiny little bit of a sparkle. And if you run into some wet paint along the way, that's okay. Just let it happen. And I'm going to just maybe put a couple more on these top ones. I don't think I'm going to put any on the bottom ones. These just look like they would be illuminated by whatever that light source is. And you can have fun with that. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And then once you've got that done, we're going to switch back to our medium brush. So I'm just going to play with my little highlights here for another second, and then I will put my small brush away, take out my medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be doing the base coat for our liquid. Well, I guess we could call it water. So this is going to be all of the effervescent bubbles and the motion of the strawberry being dropped in, and kind of the water line where it actually enters into the water, and we'll have it splashing out. Once you see how I do this, you could certainly formulate your display of splashing water in whatever way that you would like. But it is kind of a formulaic way that I'm going to approach it, so you could apply it to any type of liquid of this sort. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, my base coat is going to be with darker colors. And the reason why I want to do this is because I want to build my way to the light and build my way to those white splashes. If I'm thinking that this is water, water is translucent, which means it's see-through, and so it's just going to take on all of the colors that are around it. So it's got black around it, so we're going to use dark colors, and then we're going to be putting some reflections and stuff of the fruit in there. So I'm going to start with a custom blue that I created and a dark gray. So how I got to this blue was I took some of my ultramarine blue and I added a little bit of black and a little bit of white. So what I'm doing is I'm adding gray into my blue. So this blue is going to give you a really visible, we'll call it an aqua quality to it, and it just allows for a nice kind of more luminescent value to the water itself and gives it some great dimension. And then this gray is just a mixture of a little bit of black and white. I just want it to be a little bit lighter than my black, so I can have the idea of where my footprint is going to be for the fluid itself. So right now I just have the blue, or the grayish blue, on my brush. I don't need a lot, so I'm just going to wipe it off on my paper towel. First things first, I'm going to kind of give myself my water line. So I'm going to be about a third of the way down my canvas, or maybe about, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches above my strawberry. So if this is about halfway up or down my canvas, and this is about a quarter way, I'm somewhere in the middle of there, and I'm going to come in just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a horizontal line for that water. I want it to kind of, at points, maybe stretch out ever so faintly towards the edge of the canvas. I'm really just utilizing this as, again, my base where I want that water line to be. I am going to be utilizing a little bit of this blue to tell the story of the water itself as well, and then I'll incorporate some of that gray also. So that's my water line. Now I need to give the information as to where my strawberry is coming from. So I want it to kind of look like it's dropped into the water in here and kind of falling like that. So I'm going to kind of come up this side of the strawberry from here and bring it out like this. So I'm just going to kind of give myself a really faint line that's pretty translucent. You could even put a little bit of water on your actual brush in order to get this to be a little bit more translucent, but this is just kind of telling me the story. On the side over here, the leaves are going to be all the way in the water themselves. So they're in essence kind of pulling this motion down. So I'm going to have a little bit of this color just kind of coming over on this side and just being pulled out into the water in this direction in through here. I'm going to have a little bit of motion bubbling in through here and then kind of splashing up in this direction over in through here. So really what I'm doing is I'm giving the information as to what direction this water is kind of splashing. And because I'm using such a faint color with a little bit of this blue hue to it, it's allowing this to look, you know, glassy and translucent and have a lot of motion and movement to it. I'm going to utilize a little bit more of this blue and bring it down and bring it, oops, that was a little bit too much, bring it in front of the strawberry a little bit. So I'm going to pull it down this side in maybe these little lumpy kind of ways to give it that feel of the water kind of moving. And then maybe I'll pull a little bit into the strawberry itself in through here. I hardly have any paint on my brush right now. I'm going to bring a little bit in through here as well. And again, I still just have that blue on my brush and very little bit of it. I'm going to pull a little bit of this in front of these leaves in through here. Again, still just that blue on my brush right now. And I'm just, you see my head going back so I can kind of see the direction that I want all of this in. I'm going to start incorporating the gray right now. So I didn't wash my brush, but I picked up that gray that we created. And now I'm going to start to put some bubbles and stuff coming up. So I've got the dark gray on my brush. I'm going to really just kind of concentrate, again, very little paint on my brush, concentrate on where I want this motion to come up from the strawberry itself. So I feel like I'd want to have a couple of little bubbles and stuff coming up in through here. So just kind of tapping my brush to give myself the information as to where I want them to be. Maybe I just picked up a little bit more of that gray to bring maybe some motion down into the strawberry itself and bring in a little bit more down in through here. And again, this is fluid, so it can have wiggles, it can have all kinds of, you know, dots and bubbles, and the more you want, the more movement that you want in it, the more, you know, dimension that you can give it, the thicker that you want that water to look. You can certainly just continue to add these layers on top of it. I am going to be utilizing lighter colors to add the reflections and stuff in it, but right now I'm just kind of trying to give myself the movement of that water, allowing for the strawberry to be pulled down into that water. And I'm just adding little pieces here and there wherever I feel that it would benefit me to have the light or the faint information of the actual fluid itself, because I'm using such a color that is very similar or dark with the background. It's allowing it to look more translucent because it is so similar to that background color. And then you can add little spots of it being splashed up in through here. Gonna add a whole bunch up in through here, like it's just kind of splashing up and out of the viewing range. And again, we're gonna add all the little colors and stuff like that in a little bit, but right now just kind of getting all my motion in place. That's looking pretty good. I think I want maybe a little bit more in front of these leaves so they look like they're more behind the water as opposed to kind of coming, you know, outside of the water. And if you did something on your strawberry that you're like, I'm not totally sold on that, you can completely just disguise it with this fluid that's coming down. So that's another good thing about the fluid. It can always help you to disguise little things, maybe a couple of little bubbles coming up in through here. And just, you know, again, have fun with the way that this is all kind of formulating itself. Again, I'm just kind of doing some dots and rubbing the color here and there. And then I will be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got all of this motion in place with the blue and the gray, you can wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna finish the liquid. I'm gonna be using my medium brush, but you could certainly utilize your smaller brush if you'd like to for this step, depending on where your control happiness is. So the trick to doing this is less is more when you're trying to go for a glassy, translucent type of object where it's got lots of reflective information in it. You don't need to do a lot in order to accomplish a very strong effect. I'm going to be using all of the colors that we've used. I'm going to use my red, my green, my yellow, my white. I'll probably dip back into that pre-mixed blue that we did, or maybe the gray, maybe even some black. But really what I'm doing is just kind of looking to amp up this roadmap that we've done by showing reflections of the stuff around it. So I'll bring some red up into here. I'll bring some red up into this water and through here. I'll bring some of this green up into the reflection up here, and maybe little shoots of it up into the water splashes up here. And then we'll put a couple of bright highlights to make it really look like it's got some bubbles in it, and then we'll be done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a little bit of red paint on my brush. And again, you could certainly utilize your small brush for this, or wherever your comfort zone is. I'm going to put some of this red up in this area here. Because my strawberry is to the right, it's going to make sense that I have more of my red over on the right hand side of my canvas. So I'm going to put a little bit in this water in through here, maybe a little bit back behind some of this other water, like it's, I don't know, like we're seeing a portion of the top of the surface of the water. You can really have that as bright or as dark as you want it to be. And if you do something and you're like, whoa, that was just way too much, bring back some of the black paint. I'm going to put maybe a couple little pieces going up into this water, up in through here, then maybe a little bit coming down in this splashy area coming down here. And again, I'm not doing much, just putting a little bit represented in some of this water. Maybe we've got a couple over here in these bubbles coming up in through here. But again, you don't have to do much in order to accomplish that visual effect to it. Now that I've got some red in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put some green and yellow and white over on this left hand side. So I'm going to put green, yellow, and a touch of white all on my brush at the same time, and just kind of wipe it off on my paper towel a little bit. I'm going to bring a little bit of this up into this water coming up in through here. Maybe we've got a little bit in this area. I'm definitely going to have some in this front reflective area. Reloading my brush with a little bit more paint so I can get a little bit more highlight in through there. Maybe there's a little bit in this surface of the water going back like that. Maybe we've got a little bit up in through here. I think I want to put a little bit more green on my brush as opposed to the yellow and white, just so I can have representation of all those colors in there reflecting like this. And again, I'm not doing much, just kind of wiggling my brush a little bit. In these areas, I'm thinking that that's pretty good. Like, I don't feel like I want or need to do much more than that. So I'm gonna wash and dry my brush, and now I'm gonna go in for my lightest of my lights. So I do have I definitely want to do white, but I don't want to go all the way white right off the bat. So I'm just going to take some of my gray and add more white to it. So I want to just progressively go into the white quietly, I guess, or progressively. So I have a lighter gray on my brush right now, and again, not much of it. And again, as you're going towards these lighter areas, if you want to put a little bit of water on your brush, you certainly could. That's going to allow you to get smoother lines and more fluidity on the canvas. But I have a little bit lighter of a gray on my brush right now, and I'm just going to start kind of sprinkling it in towards some of these areas. I don't want to do it as much as the original gray that I did. I'm just doing smaller areas, so it makes it look like it is just, again, progressively getting lighter towards the lightest effervescent stuff that we'll be putting on in a minute. And again, I'm just kind of making sure that I'm telling the story of the movement of the water. Maybe we've got a couple of little dots happening in through here. And because I'm slowly going towards the light, that's what's going to make it look even more realistic. I'm just going to put a couple little dots in through here, maybe bringing a little bit in through here. I'm probably going to add a touch of darkness or shadows a little bit underneath some of the lightness as it's hitting the strawberry, so that way it looks like maybe this water is reflecting some of the black stuff, the black background around it. So that's going to be a little trick that I'm going to do in a minute as well. But right now, just kind of adding this lighter gray into here, making it look to me like it's fluid. Maybe you want to put yours in a little bit different of a formulaic kind of way. I want this to really travel out towards this side. So just making sure that I've got that trajectory that I want. Maybe these little tiny pieces up here kind of being pulled out from within the water. And again, just that light gray is where I'm at right now, adding this additional bit of brightness to it, kind of following my original path that I had in through here, putting little bits in through here. Maybe we've got some extra stuff over here. And you can see I'm just really watching what I did initially and adding a little bit more, but not in as big of an area. And this is giving me that illusion of it being of a fluid type of surface. Try not to go over too much of my colors that I had put in there, just allowing them to kind of work together. And if you can do some almost circular type of shapes, that'll make them look like little drops of fluid as opposed to just wiggles of sorts. You can add those little circular motions and that's going to look like little droplets. So that's another little way to provide that that lumpiness within your fluid. And then just kind of going in through here, adding some more little dots in through here. And then I'm going to add some white in a second here, but just want to make sure that I've got all of that information. So right now I'm going in for a little bit of white on my brush. I'm going to add just a touch up in through here, something like that. And then maybe a couple little dots here and there. Once I get to the white, I'm hardly adding it. I don't do much with it. The white is really just reserved for the brightest of the bright sparkles. It's allowing for these pieces to really just pop out and show the dimensional element of them, but I don't do a whole heck of a lot with the white. It adds a lot, it adds a big effect to it, but you need to use it all over the place. Just adding those little twinkles on pieces of the existing fluid will make it look like it is shining of sorts. It's projecting that brightness from wherever the light source is coming from, or whatever is causing it to have these brighter elements to it. And this is going to just kind of come down in through here, and all the while I'm just kind of moving these light spots with the motion that I've already put in place. And in the midst of it, you can do some little dots. That's going to show that maybe it's spraying out a little bit. I might actually add a bit more red up into this top portion. As it's drying, I'm feeling like it might behoove me to add a little bit more red. And that's something that you'll determine all on your own as well. As you're going through your process, you might find that as it's drying, that you see that you want a little bit more enhancement into it. So you would definitely just kind of watch it as it dries and see if there's other stuff that you want to add to it. And just making sure that I've got all the motion that I want in through here. Just wiggling my brush a little bit. Bring this down these sides so you can definitely tell that the fluid is in front of these things, these objects that are being splashed down into the water below. And then once I've got this done, I think I am going to add that touch of black underneath or within some of these that are in front of the strawberry, so they look like they're reflecting some of this background. So I washed and dried my brush. I put a touch of black paint on my brush, and again, this is just going to add to the illusion of it that maybe these pieces of water down in front of the strawberry are reflecting some of that black stuff that's behind them. These ones all look like they are already because they have the black touching them, but to provide additional pieces in front of the strawberry, that's going to make it look, again, just a little bit more realistic. Like you've got that information from the exterior just kind of incorporating or encapsulating the whole strawberry. And I'm going in for some more red. I know I feel like I'm almost done, but I feel like I need a couple more pops of red. So I just put a little bit more red on my brush. Gonna just pop a little bit more in here. I really want it to read, and I want you to be able to see that red is really coming up in this fluid, and maybe just making sure that it is just, you know, popping and reflecting well as much as I want it to up in through here. And that's, you know, not much I didn't do, but it just helps to sell that story. And I'm thinking that's it. You can fiddle with it a little bit more. We do have one little step left to go, and it's going to be with our small brush. So once you've got this done, you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going bottom right on this one with red paint. So I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you want for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. It is your painting. You get to sign it however you'd like. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a really cool fruit dropping into some water, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.